Now, the Prime Minister, John Key, good morning.
Morning, Leighton.
There is a great deal to talk about, particularly on the political front. Because
before we start, though, should we get the skiting out of the way? How's the book going? You're selling thousands and thousands of copies. Mrs. Key has hers all ready for a little bit of Hawaiian reading.
Can I just point out something to my folk? This is his attempt to offset me from my course.
No, it's not.
Well, it's not going to work.
I'm genuinely interested in the next stage of your career as like the John Grisham.
2 weeks after it went on sale, it went for reprint.
Right.
And yesterday I was advised it's going for its second reprint.
Well, I don't like that bit in it that says you're a non-aligned voter.
Correct.
I don't like that bit.
Correct. If you read the rest of it, there'd be other things you didn't like either.
Well, I'll do that over Christmas. Anyway, okay,
all right.
Back to politics.
So back to politics. Let me suggest to you, with some reasonable confidence, that you're in very grave danger of not being the Prime Minister after November of next year.
On the basis of what?
On the basis that you're not going to have a partner that anyone's going to vote for.
Well, I mean, let's get through a few things. I mean, the first is that MMP is not pretty. I mean, we had a chance to vote it out in 2011, and New Zealanders overwhelmingly rejected that. So that is what it is. So I've got to work with the system that's out there. And it's a system that, whether we like it or not, drives coalitions and agreements and arrangements between parties. So in Germany, in the entire history of the German MMP system, which is what we have in New Zealand, they've once had a majority government. So could we do that? It's possible in 2014, but I think we would all intellectually say it's going to be challenging. So the second thing is, okay, will we find some other partners? The answer is almost certainly yes. And the reason for that is, and there's no science behind this bit, but if you want my view, I reckon about 80% of the country, on average, votes for Labour or National in some sort of combination there. But 20% of the country is not going to vote for them. They're going to vote for a variety of different parties. Now, it depends. I mean, you've had situations back in 2002 when Labour and National, I think, combined got about 67 or 68. It was sub-70 anyway. But as a general rule, that's how it goes. So there are going to be a bunch of other political parties out there. And there is a grouping of those parties that can, might, or will work with National. And you and I might not share all their views, because there's no point in me saying I agree with everything.
I'm aware of that. Aware of that. But of course, the German system was set up so that nobody could ever achieve anything.
Yeah, although Germany is, the strong man of Europe in so much that they've got an economic performance. And actually, we've been in the MMP system for 5 years now. And
you have, you mean?
Yeah, I have. Sorry, as Prime Minister. Sorry, I've been Prime Minister for 5 years under that scenario. And actually, we've delivered, I think, a very strong performance in that time. Yes, it drives you to be a bit more moderate and a bit more in the centre, and you actually have to constantly work.
Are you more moderate because of that?
Yeah,
than you would be.
Well, you're forced to be.
Where would you be less moderate if you were really pulling the strings?
Well, there could be lots of places, but let me give you one live example. We are wanting to reform the Resource Management Act, and in particular, we are wanting to make changes to Section 6 and 7 of the Act, which some people will understand because they'll be intimately involved in it. Effectively, we are struggling to get a parliamentary majority, although we've probably got one, but we're struggling to get one, and certainly one that's sustainable right through all stages of that bill. So we are moderating that to potentially get to the point where we can introduce it. So whether we like it or not, we're having to take on board that other political parties are offering a different view. That is minority government in live action here in New Zealand. So the point is that look, there's no point in saying that I'm going to agree with everything Colin Craig says or every policy that the ACT Party has or everything the Maori Party believe in, because I don't and I won't. But actually the question is, can I function with those kinds of people in United and potentially others? The answer is yes. I've done that over the last 5 years.
Okay, but I asked you a specific question, at least I thought I did, and I want to ask it again. If you were Prime Minister in your own right, as in the National Party was the party in power on its own, what would be different? Would we still have the anti-smacking bill, just to pick an obvious example?
Well...
just give me a yes or no.
Well, the answer is, I think in that one, yes, you would probably have it, in so much that the question you'd have to ask is, in the context of a global financial crisis, major earthquakes in Christchurch, all of these other things, would people see that as the number one priority to reverse that? Because you still have to, even if you're a majority government, you've still got to go through all of the processes. I mean, we won an election in a landslide where the number one policy front and centre stage was the mixed ownership model. And we're still dealing with a referendum and all the other stuff that goes on. So you don't get out of democracy because you have a majority. In fact, actually winning the parliamentary votes is only one part of it. I mean, overall...
there are a couple of areas where the majority of the population is very heavily weighted for or against something,
yes,
and the law says something else.
Correct.
And
that is one. I mean, I accept that.
Let's not get bogged down there. I want to come back to the situation with ACT. And, well, I was going to say Colin Craig, although it's supposedly the Conservatives.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling, and this occurred to me this morning, what we're witnessing at the moment is it's really got to be fast stage with Colin Craig and his moonwalk, with ACT in the crisis that it's in, that we're looking at a manufactured scenario. Somebody's desperately, and this talk of another right-wing or right-of-centre party starting up, and we're about manufacturing something to fit the political environment for appropriate purposes, other than political parties actually standing for something and putting themselves to the public on the basis of their philosophy.
Yeah, well, that's the bit I disagree with. I mean, in the end, we have a very strong set of values and principles that underpin the National Party. They're predictable, and we are truly a moderate centre-right government.
Okay, but let's accept that. But I'm talking about the minor parties and the perception that's very widespread that you need another party to the right. And this party sort of almost doesn't exist at the moment.
No.
And so it has to now be manufactured to suit the environment.
Well...
And I find that uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, look, all I can tell you is that the reality of MMP is that you need to work with other political parties. And the reality of New Zealand's makeup is that you are not going to get, in my view, 100% of New Zealanders voting Labour and National. They're going to. There's 20-odd % of people that spread around. So whether you're manufacturing it or not, I mean, the thing that, if you ask me, the obvious question is, am I a bit surprised that 5 years on we're polling 46, 47%, and we're in a position where ACT is sort of in the toilet and all of these other things? The answer is, yeah, I'm quite surprised in a lot of ways, because no one else around the world as an incumbent government is actually doing that, and you would have expected us to probably go down a bit and those other parties to be able to go up a bit, and actually they haven't. But there's a lot of reasons for that. I think people take a fair bit of stock out of the fact that the government is actually quite clear about what it wants to do, has a plan, is delivering it. It's not always popular in everything it does, but it's actually delivering results. And in fact, actually most people, well, our supporters at least, can understand where we're going.